Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens one on Instagram. I hopefully still. And welcome to episode 841. Automation is freedom. This is gonna be a great episode. Very much looking forward to this. I really admire people that have some dreams and chase after them. So I have a ton of respect for this man right here for kind of having an idea and putting it forward and making it happen. Cheers, automation is freedom. How you doing, mister? It's been a long time since we've had this conversation. Um, Actually, almost 5 years. It was November 1st, 2020 when we first spoke. Can you believe it?
I know it's been a long time. It was right around COVID. And I remember having a lot of time on my hands because we had gotten sent home during that time. And that's when I really started trying to become a better grower and learning more. And I think I just stumbled upon your show, and I really appreciate all the gold nuggets that I had gotten through the years from everybody, people in chat and people that you've had on the show. And so through this process of creating this system of mine was really twofold. One was my wife; she was really the driving force behind it, and she wanted to go away. I just started growing. I didn't know anybody that grew, and I had way too many plants and too small powered LEDs, the old blurple lights. So it was very difficult. And I told her I can't go away, and I need to be here to water these plants. And that went over like a lead balloon. So she said that you got to build something. And that's what put me down this road of kind of looking at different control systems. And back then, 2017, 2018, there wasn't AC Infinity, I don't believe was here yet. And if they were, they certainly didn't have their controller. And I don't actually believe there were many people in this space that had anything for the home growers as far as control over your system. And I find it very helpful because I stay pretty busy and uh, it allows me to do a lot of different things in my garden and accomplish a lot of different tasks that, especially in the watering, I decided to focus on the watering. I had built an everything system where it controls the heating, the humidity, and I had all the different sensors and I have it all hooked up. And actually on my prototype system that I finished in 2018, the original box, it's a big old metal box and it ran two tents and the watering manifold is set up between them. And on one side, I have 8 earth boxes in a 5 by 10 tent. And on the other side, I have a 5 by 5 tent with 4 fabric 7 gallon pots in there. And I use a different sensor for those. It's a soil sensor. And I've heard other people say that they've had problems with the soil sensors not working very well. And I can't say that I've had that problem once you get it dialed in. And it's just like anything else. They're a little more tricky. I like the SIPs because it's a lot easier. You just allow the sensor to sense when the reservoir has gone dry, and then it'll fill it upon the dryback period that you set. It has to be at least just 1 minute, and then it'll begin its watering sequence, and it'll fill it up to the full signal, which is you'll set that yourself. And the other sensor is a soil sensor, it's like this one that you see here. So I've tried it several different ways when using it. I've tried it burying this whole thing under the soil a few inches, and I tried that for a few runs. It worked okay. I found that when I just put the forks in on the top of the pot, that and you have to work with the when it's calling for water and when it's too full. So those are the two things that you as an operator would set yourself. And it's very easy. It's on the screen. It's just a number between 0 and 100, and zero being dry, dry, and 100 being sloppy, wet. And so you would figure out by weighing your pots, not weighing them, but pick them up just like you would normally when you water them. And that's how you kind of dial in the system with these fabric pots. And once you get it down, you can feel pretty confident that you can keep the soil moist enough so that you don't develop those dry pockets, and then you end up getting the water, running off of one side, and your pot doesn't really get watered properly, especially in a fabric pot. It can just run the whole watering right off the side, and you didn't get anything. And one thing I am going to include in this, in the fabric pot system, is a float valve, which you can set up any which way as long as it's horizontal. And so that you could set up like a drain system. Let's just say that you have your fabric pots a few inches off the ground, and underneath them you have some sort of a plate or a board that might be, just 2 inches up on one end and 1 inch down on the other end, that'll cover at least 4 feet, just that 1 inch difference for the board to be 4 feet across. And you get water to run down at one end, and you could angle it so that it could then maybe pour into some sort of puddle or something. I'm not, that'd be up to you to see how you could set that up. But I would make this available to you, and an extra little pump so that you could pump that out. Should you, while you're setting up your system, you run into some, watering where it tends to run off the side. I did have that happen to me, but once you kind of get it down, and the volume of water that you give the plant on that fabric pot also makes a big difference. Like I said, I was using 7 gallon pots, so I would use a very low watering amount, like just maybe 16 ounces at a time. Sometimes I would just use 8, and it just depends. It's been a while since I've used that side. Um, it's almost been a whole run now. Uh, but I do have a lot of confidence in it, and it does work and allow me to do other things, and it frees me up. If you don't, um, since AC Infinity came into the space, they offer a very nice environmental controller. I don't have one because I've spent all my money on this developing this water system. Excuse me. And I still use the old timers from Home Depot, the ones with a 15-minute push button. So I use those for my lights and my heater, my fans, just to rotate those. But I, for my watering, then it has to be, you have to have more control. You just can't rely on, um, I haven't found anything out there that you can just rely on. So I built this box so that I could go away using my sip containers, because I found that was the most easiest way for me to grow. And I tried a few different ways, cocoa, and but it was so much watering. And at the time I was still just doing it manual. I was still watering everything. So it was just a bit more than I wanted to put out because of my space and the amount of work that it would have taken. I'm in the basement. I have a little bit of running water down here, just through a gravity fed system. That's it. Otherwise, go up out of a basement, have to get rid of stuff and bring things in. It can be a pain. But once I hooked up the watering system, which is a 55-gallon drum, a decorative drum that sits outside my house, and then I have a garden hose that comes in through the dryer vent and then fills up another 55-gallon drum in my basement. And I just use a regular float valve to keep those full. So there's no electricity there. It's just whenever it needs it, it'll fill it up from the outside ones. And even during the wintertime when it freezes out there and that little garden hose is frozen solid, I still have enough water inside that 55-gallon drum, usually to take me through a run without any problems at all. I have yet to run into any water problems where I've had to turn on a spigot, and I decided to go with gravity over pressurized system because when you have water on all the time, you just never know. One just has to do one little part of that system. Let's go, and now you've got a flood in your house, unless you've got some other safety features built in prior to that. So I was very wary of going with a system that would be hooked up to pressure all the time. Not saying that doesn't work, works just fine. It's just my own, just another little thing to not have to worry about when I'm gone. And my gravity system's set up so that essentially, if anything goes wrong, if it hits an interlock of any sorts, then the water will just sit, and it'll sit for a certain amount of time, and no pumps will run at this time, and then it'll clear itself of that error. So it'll empty out any water that might be in the drain, what I call the watering container. It's like a big funnel up on top, and then that feeds the watering manifold. And so it's a really nice system, and it does allow me the freedom that I want. You could spend a lot of time watering, and if you that's the way that you get close to your plants, that's great, and like to each his own. And I'm not trying to push that, oh, everybody needs to have automation. And, it's to each his own. That's the way I am. And if you want an automated system, then you can feel confident getting this watering system that I've offered here and feel confident that it'll do everything that I say it will. And uh, I just I just know for myself, I would rather be able to not have to water each pot and take the time to do that, because it could become time consuming if you're running a pretty big garden. And that way it allows you to look at your plants more. And I think that's maybe, I mean, for me, scouting and looking for bugs and looking for things and trying to avoid pitfalls that might set you back. When I was watering manually, I would overwater or I would underwater. And each time you do that during your run, you're just slowing yourself down. You're holding the plant back. It's not running at optimum speed. So maybe you're not going to get everything that plant can get out of it. So, just I don't have any science to back that up. It's just my own opinion. But it's just common sense. And uh, so you can feel confident that you could walk away and this system would easily do all the watering for you. And like I said, it's got a couple of safety features. So you set how many watering events you want each pot to be able to have before an alarm gets set. And in my earth boxes, because the reservoir is bigger, then the number that I set there is a lot larger. Usually it's like four or potentially five. Like I said, it's been a while since I've been over there, and right now I'm just running in 5-gallon totes that I got from Walmart. They're rectangular shaped. They're kind of like the kitty litter ones. So they have a reservoir of just maybe a little over a gallon uh, in there, and that's where I drove my drain hole. So, um, so I just put one inside of the other one, and the one that goes inside, I drilled a bunch of like half-inch holes, or I don't know if they were that big, but just drilled them out all over the bottom, like you see in an earth box, so that the roots can get through without any problems. And I lined the bottom with a brown paper bag material that doesn't have any ink on it or anything. And then I wet it pretty good, and then I put my soil in there. And then I usually will move clones in these pots from from the red cups, from the little red cup sips. I let them get pretty big, the clones in there, and then I'll plop them right in there and let them go, and they're off. And initially, for the first week or so, I'll make sure that there aren't any waterings that go into that reservoir, because when you first put the plant in there, the roots need to grow and get down there. So maybe you don't have to put any water in the reservoir for at least a week. I would imagine a week, 10 days, maybe. And it's very easy to see. You could always just lift up that top pot and just look and see if you see any roots. It's very easy to do. Um, but once they start drinking, they'll take off. And I found like every 3 or 4 days, they tend to need watering. and every plant is on its own schedule. That's what I like about this system is every pot is individual. So if you wanted to grow many different strains in the same garden, in the same environment, you could do that and feel confident that in a sip container or this fabric or the fabric pots, if you wanted to go with that sensor system, the sensor system might be a little bit more expensive. I hadn't really priced it out completely. I know it's going to be real close to what the SIP systems are. So you could rest assured that if you looked at the website, Automation.is.Freedom.com, you would at least get an idea of what it's going to be. The sensors themselves are a little bit more expensive than the sensor I made for the SIPs, and the cards that go into the PLC are more expensive than the cards that I'm using to sense my sensor. Anyway, uh, so you could do individual plants. They're on their own schedule, their own watering schedule, drinking schedule, and everybody's done individually. And because you're running, like I'm running all these 5 gallon containers, so the reservoir is all the same, essentially. So I use the same watering interlock for each one. You know, there's just one, there's not an individual one for each one. It's one for the group. So my system is set up with the watering manifold underneath the funnel are 2 arms and like right and left, and that makes it easy so that you could split the system in half so that you could put half your uh, pots into another environment. That's on the other side. I have it split my watering manifold between 2 tents. So in one tent is all my SIP systems that goes off to the left in my big tent, in my 5x10, and then on the right is my 5x5 where I had my fabric pots, and that's totally separate, 2 totally different environments. And I just run it right through the holes in the at the bottom of the tent. That's where I run my PVC line, you know, and it just runs right in there. And I've got a pretty good tall manifold, so it builds up a good head pressure and it pushes that water right through. And I hadn't had a problem getting my last sip filled, which is 10 feet away, at least 10 feet away from my manifold. And as long as you got a decent downward slope, and I just have the watering lines running across my sensors, actually across the top of my sensor. So it's just a nice gradual run. And uh, yeah, it does it. It fills it up and it works just fine. And another thing too, say you don't have a space, like if I think my smallest system is a 4x4, so maybe you don't have room for 8 plants. Maybe that's too many. Maybe you only run 4. You can interlock off certain number of plants on the system. So let's just say the system I'm going to show you is a 12 pot system. So I have 6 plants on one side and 6 plants on the other side. If I was if I was only running 6 plants on one side and 4 plants on the other side, I can shut off the sensor to plant pots 5 and 6 so that they won't even be seen. So the PLC never sees it. So you can run less number of pots if you wanted to, if you so desired, if that was all the room you had. And it's built on a PLC controller. And in my opinion, it's the best controller out there. And the reason I say that is because I've worked out in the industry almost all my life, except when I was in the Navy for 8 years, where I worked on a track radar system, fixing electronics, and we fixed everything from the watering system, pulled in seawater. It was nice and cool to cool the fresh water, and then went up to the radars and everything. So from A to Z. That's one good thing about the Navy. You don't pigeonhole you in one little thing. It's kind of cool. Um, so I spent 8 years there, and then after that, I worked essentially in refineries, power generation, waste to energy plants up here. They used to be called Wheelabrator. I think they were bought out by Waste Management. They run them now. And they burn trash, generate steam that turns a GE generator that they put on the grid. And it's very efficient, gets rid of trash, and it's very clean when it comes out. You'd be surprised. And then I also worked out at Phenol Oil and Chemical Company out in West Texas. and I went out on a big rig there, a big system. I was out in unit number one, and it's just essentially one guy, out in that whole unit, which is me. And then my buddy worked in, unit number two, where they made different stuff, like they might refine oil where I was and make gas. And then where he was, they made chemicals and stuff. And I'm glad I didn't work where he was. Oh my goodness, he had to put on like the rain suit whenever he had to go in there because some of the chemicals were so caustic. So I just had to deal with heights, which I wasn't a big fan of. But you know, sometimes some of the things you do just aren't OSHA approved, but you got to get it done. And especially back then, like I know today it's a lot better in safe work environments, but back then, if there was a bunch of pipe that was um, running across towards a tank that had, let's say, some thermocouple failed up on a well, 30 feet up, and you had to walk across these pipes that were like, 6, 8 inches in diameter, but a whole bunch of them together. So it's not quite like a floor. But anyway, and all kinds of conditions, winter, summer, it's real hot. And out West Texas, where that wind blows and it's real cold. May not get a lot of snow, but oh my goodness, does it get cold. So that's where I kind of learned between the Navy and my experience out in industry. I learned about working with all different types of sensors, and I saw a lot of evolution from where we used to be. Like we used a lot of pneumatics when I worked out there in industry to move giant valves, and they would take a 4 to 20 milliamp signal and then convert that to a 3 to 15 psi signal, which would, the valve was just calibrated for. So anyway, you can feel when it comes to the box, all the ends, the terminal ends, all have crimps ends on them, and I don't know if you can. You probably really can't see inside here too well. You do get this keyboard and mouse. You get this 7-inch touchscreen. Um, Let me just see if I can get you a little better angle. Get this Wi-Fi antenna here. Works real good with these new PLC controllers. They got Wi-Fi on them. I really like it a lot. I can get you a look in here. So I don't know if you can kind of see in there a little bit. You can kind of see my the
Yep.
PLC and all the wiring and everything. I feel confident that I'll test everything before it goes out the door because I don't have to put it in a pod. I can get however many Tupperware containers that I need in order to just put the sensors in, and then I can adjust them up and down just to make sure all the electronics are working, and so you can be sure that everything's going to be tested before it goes out the door. Um, I do have, so I said that one good thing about this system over anything that I've seen out there is that you could put a dry back on this, and you have to at least put 1 minute dry back. Because I used the zero for another purpose in the system to be able to shut it off. Um, so you have to have at least 1 minute dry back. I don't think that's going to probably hurt the plant very much. Um, and then you can set it for however long you want. I'm pretty sure I got it in there where you can set it for like a week. Like um, I'm gonna have all this written down, like what that is. And there's only a few critical things that you really have to fill in on a SIP system, which would be the dryback time. You would select how much water you would want to water your plants. All right. I like using, like I said, my container, my reservoir that I'm using now in these 5 gallon SIPs are only about 1 gallon. So I use a 32-ounce drop of water at a time. And I like it because it's a nice run and it goes through several different angles going through the manifolds, which allows it to break the tension of the water, which, is just adding oxygen to the water all the way through the system, all the way into the pot, you know, um, when it gets into those sips. And let me just get a drink of water here. Ooh. I can't see chat, so I apologize for that, guys. Um,
I'll allow you any questions that I see. Other than that, there's been a lot of hellos.
oh,
We got
great. All right.
a couple. My guy, automation is freedom is my guy. I see a lot of support from the community so far tonight. Cheers and thank you guys for all showing up. So as far as like say, you talked about your 55-gallon drums feeding is in through a hose. So is there a possibility if you wanted to vary, have a little variation in that, like say feeding off a reverse osmosis tank, or how about is it uh, adaptable for say nutrients? And,
The only thing I would worry about nutrient is most of those nutrients. Um, I guess I don't know if it would really be up to you. Like it's just designed for water because I think that's all I've ever used inside the reservoirs of my sips. I don't. Do people actually add stuff to the or are you thinking more in the fabric pots, maybe watering that way? I used to have it set up where you could put a tea in there, but I went away from that because uh, once I started growing and I started using like craft blend to re-amend my soil, then I went away from having to use any kind of teas. I use the Humate products that Brandon Russ offers as a spray during the right times or as a top feed in my sip container. Um, when I want it. And that's what I like about my dry bag. Like you could set your dry bag if you're thinking, okay, my plants are looking like they might need a top feed here soon, or maybe you just do it anyway. You could delay that watering event to fill up the reservoir if you wanted just to top water initially and water your plants that way with some sort of product that would, that you're looking to enhance your plant with. But the system itself is just for water. It could be used like I won't be sending you a 55-gallon drum. What I will send you is a 6-gallon container that goes along with the watering manifold. So I will send you the pump. I will send you the electric line that will just plug right into the back of the box. It'll say 55-gallon pump, and you just put it, plug the wire right in there. And then I'll send you a length of hose, probably about 25 or 30 feet long. And then it'll be up to you to hook up whatever kind of tank you want. Like the tank that I'm using, my 55-gallon drum, it came with like a spigot uh, hole near the bottom, so that I could hook up like a regular garden hose, um, like ball valve on there. But it's a manual, and so off of that, I set up a split T coming off of that because I have two separate. I've got my prototype on the other side, and then I have my little garden here where all the plants are under one space, under one environment. But they both have separate pumps that fill up their respective 6-gallon containers. And so you'll get that pump, and then you'll just have to get yourself a tank of some size. And I would recommend as big as you can get it. So if that came off of some sort of reverse osmosis system, yeah, I don't see that there's a problem with that. Um, but I didn't specifically design it for any type of nutrients because doesn't that normally then like contaminate your container? Like things might start to grow or I'm just not that up to speed on what might be available out there now that maybe might sit in a reservoir and not go bad if it's just going to sit there, maybe up to a week before your plants call for some sort of watering. So I don't know. I went with the water only. And whether it's rainwater like I use or you want to, just have a hose somewhere that you fill up a separate tank and then that tank feeds a 6-gallon container and then you just yourself would have to, you could put a float valve in that tank, and hook up a system that way, maybe through some garden hose or some sort of spare plumbing fixture that you might have. But there again, it's what happens if that float valve fails, you know. So I just worry, I wouldn't want to see anybody flood their house. And I've almost flooded this basement 3 times with 55 gallon. That 55-gallon drum would have emptied itself because I was first just testing out this system and trying different things out. And I remember I had before Indica B moved to Michigan, him and his wife came over, and I was showing them my system when I first set it up on the other side with the fabric pots, and I was showing them how you could use the test circuitry that's on there, so that you could have the water, instead of watering your plants, would just go out this other hose and would normally you just leave it dangling into the 6-gallon container, but you can pull that hose out and then fill up some sort of Tupperware container so that you can actually measure an exact amount of water that you're giving your plants each time. So maybe somebody who's, into growing, like super heavy and likes the science stuff, and they want to keep track of how much water this plant, drinks a lot more than this one in the same environment. And like I could think of a lot of different applications that some of these things might come into play. And I used to use a Hall effect sensor on here to sense how much water was being measured going into that. But uh, whenever you build anything, right, it's a compromise between if you get real expensive sensors, you're going to pay a lot of money for them, and that's just going to drive up the cost of everything. So you try and get a sensor that will work, that you feel fairly confident in, that's going to be accurate. So I was trying these Hall effect sensors that were pretty decent, but if they would sit any length of time, they would always have to be recalibrated before it would go, and I could just see that that would be a big headache for the homeowner. And as a technician, look, I've been a technician all my life. I hadn't been the guy, behind the scenes designing these things, or I've been out there working, and so when I built this, I came at it from that perspective, so that anything needed to do on here, you yourself as a homeowner, or if you're growing at home, and it doesn't matter if you're growing, any kind of plant, it doesn't have to be cannabis, but um, then you're going to be somewhat of a DIY. You're going to be able to do things, or you're going to have the confidence that you can. And at least if you had the resource, like all of us will go to YouTube and look up things on how to do things that maybe we've never ever done before. And then you realize, wow, I could do that, So I built this thing. I'm going to support it. I got a certain amount of, like, I'm still working, but if I ever got busy enough where I could step away from work full time, that would be my goal. And then I would make those hours that I'm available a lot longer. And that's just for like a direct, you talk to me. And if anybody from New England that's not too far away, like, I don't know, I would limit how far I would be willing to drive, because I where I live, it probably takes me an hour just to get to any one of the southern boundary lines of like New Hampshire, Vermont, or going to Connecticut. But I would be willing to travel. I would go, instead, I would forego the shipping and I just deliver this thing, and you set aside a time, a day, not, and we'd get it done. And I don't think it'd take that long. Just so long as you already planned out your room, how you want to set things up. And when I send you the tubing, I'm not going to have it cut in pre-cut lengths. All right, because if I did that, then the first plants that come from the manifold might be, so let's just say I was going to send you 10 feet for every pot. All right. And you had a 12 pot system. So I'm sending you 120 feet, but I already cut all those into lengths. Right. But your first row of pots of plants is only 5 feet away. So now I've wasted 5 feet that you could have used, that maybe you got to plant this 15 feet away. So, um, so I'm going to send you one roll, and then you just cut it. Just take a pair of pliers or some straight, straight edge or scissors. Some heavy duty scissors, garden shears would probably do it easy. This stuff cuts pretty easy. And then I would just recommend using a heat gun just to heat up the ends a little bit, just just warm enough to make it kind of soft, where you don't want it too soft because you can't push it on. So I made these so that you can push them on, and then as they cool, they harden right around that thing. I'm telling you, it's not going to come off, especially since it's not a pressurized system. So another benefit to being a gravity-fed system is that you don't have to worry about there's a certain amount of pressure in this line. Can I blow a line or, and then now I've got a situation where there's a flood, so you have there's two different flood prevention measures so that if one failed, then you have the backup, and which will catch it. It's a catch-all, and the only way it wouldn't catch it is if there wasn't any power to the PLC itself, and if there's no power to the PLC, nothing's going to be running, so no pumps are going to work, and even if you lose power right during the middle of a watering event, and then when power comes back on, it's going to pick right up where it left off. It's not going to leave you hanging. You don't have to come home and flip a switch. Just leave everything on. And when the power comes back on, you're good to go. That system's going to pick right up where it left off, and it's just going to continue doing its job. And that's why I like a PLC. It's reliable. That's why they're used in industry. You don't find any of these microcontrollers out in industry. They're not running anything out there. They're using PLCs, and you can look that up. You can fact check me on that. The PLCs have been around since the late 1960s, and they run everything, not just from oil refineries. You're talking about all these switching stations up here in Massachusetts for the subways or anywhere else in this country. PLCs run all that, all the flipping of the wires. It's reliable and it's bulletproof, and that's why these things cost money. And I don't want you, coming back. I want to sell you something that I have confidence in that's going to run 20 years. And then if you do the math on a 20-year run on that, where you're not spending any money, well, all right, let's just say about a ball valve fails. And so if I can keep the price where it is now at about between 20 and 25 right now, I can get them for because of the volume. But you won't find that price on Amazon. And you can go check it out. That's my initial system. That's where I was buying everything. And so I spent the most money developing it on that initial system. But since then, I started to buy things from other places. But, with the way the world's going, I got enough on hand to make enough systems either way, sensor system or SIP system, uh, for a number of systems that I could for sure. And so if things don't go south, and I'll still have the same reliable suppliers that I'm using now, and I can probably keep that price right where it is. But if you go to Amazon and then you let's look up a ball valve DC 24 volt 2 wire. Look that up. It's going to be probably around, I don't know, probably around between 35 and up. I don't know how much up, but it'll go up from there, I'm sure. At least 35, I would imagine. So you're gonna at least save 10 with me, just buying them from me if one fails. And I'll back everything up from head to toe, from the electronics in this box to any of the ball valves, my sensor, anything fails that you need to replace for 2 years. All right, so 2 years, I'll replace anything for free. You just ship me back the old one, and I'll send you a new one. All right, and if you wanted to buy a couple ahead of time, like um, that's kind of tricky. Like, I've only got a set number, but if somebody wanted to buy one extra to have on the shelf, so let's just say something failed some number of years, you could pull this thing off the shelf and just install it, and bing bang, you're back in service, um, rather than waiting for a turnaround time on the shipping. But it's very easy because it's a gravity fed system. Another advantage to this is the manifold itself. So the manifold itself is only glued in one, two, three, four spots. That's it. So you have the funnel, then it comes down to a horizontal split for the left and right arms. And then on that split and going down on those down, there's just only a couple of spots right there where it's glued. Everything else is not glued, like all the pumps all lined up, all the valves, ball valves lined up next to each other. They're not glued. And because it's not a pressurized system, I just push them together as hard as I can. Rah, you know? And um and I rarely will have anything leak out of there at all. Maybe occasionally, maybe a one little drop, but if you just kind of turn it a little bit because it's not glued. And the reason I did that was because if you ever had to replace one, all right, and so this is what happened to me, a technician, all right, I had to replace one. Do I want to get out a hacksaw and then have to cut up, and then I got to figure out how I'm going to glue this back up, and now it's going to be so it's just easier if it's not glued together, and then you just rotate one up, 90 degrees, so that now you can unscrew it. You just undo two wires, pull off the little hose, then you just unscrew it. That's it. And then you screw on the new ones. Hook back up the hose and uh, and then just twist it back down in line. And twist it back down in line, hook up the hose, and hook up those two electrical lines. It's really easy, and I made it simple too. Like um, replacing the wires. They'll come in six wires in an individual cable, and all the color of those wires all associate with the same ball valve support. So um, there's six colors. So I'm just going to randomly pick blue. Let's just say blue. So the ball valve, it's blue. Its sensor out in the pot will also be blue. Will be blue wires, so that there's no mixing. You can't, pot, SIP number one will be attached to ball valve number one. They're very easy to identify the colors and which one is which. Plus, I'm going to put a little sticker on top of each one so that this is, you're just not going to be able to not know which ball valve is which. So I have, because it is it's capable to have a dry back, and I could not guarantee that I was going to be able to do a live watering, but I wanted to. It was really, I wanted to get on here and show you guys what this thing can do. And so I've had a pot that's needed watering since probably early this morning. When I first checked it, it had like 200 minutes already on it. Now I do that on purpose because I'm still like testing and I like to stress out my plants. And what's a good way to stress them out? Well, let me tell you, that's a real good way to stress out your plant. Um, so I wanted to be able to show watering. So I just set my watering amount that I would normally maybe just leave at one or five or whatever. You can set whatever number you want. Um, I just put it at such a high number that I know that it wouldn't be reached before we would have a chance to do this watering event. Because it's that important for me to actually show you. I'd like to show you it works, and actually let you see it. So I personally, because of my age, um, I mean, I would use this if this is all I had. But because the system's hooked up to my network, I can just bring my laptop down here and then through hooking up to my network on the Wi-Fi, I can dial in to the box that's going to control the this watering manifold. And I can control it right here from my laptop. And I can be essentially anywhere in my house. I can be upstairs. I live in a multi-floor dwelling. So I can be a couple of floors up and still see everything. So let me just get this up here.
So what all comes in the box, basically?
Okay. All right. So what comes in the box? Let's see. You're gonna have this the control box. You're going to have this 7-inch little screen here, but it's not a touch screen. But you do have a wireless keyboard and mouse that come with it. You do get the antenna, which is a 10 dB antenna, so it's got pretty good range, uh, so that you get good feedback. Like before I had these antennas, and before I really got my house wired down here, um, I was getting not bad feedback, but delayed feedback. All right, so the PLC, once you load up the program into the PLC, and that's another thing, you need a Windows. You need a Windows machine because the program that runs the PLC is a Windows base. So I'm going to give you a jump drive, which has the whole CD on it. And then so you just load that onto your computer, and then you'll go to the setup, and in there you'll be able to enter in your network ID, your username, and then your password, so that you can get this box set up into your system. And same thing with the screen here. Like you'll use a mouse, and it'll come up here. It's a Raspberry Pi, and up here it'll be the network settings, and then you just click up here in the right hand corner, and then you can set your name and password. So what also comes in the box is this. So hopefully you can see it well here. So you're going to get this. Let's see. All right, so what you're going to get is you'll get this 6.5 gallon container, and what it'll have attached to it and already hooked up to the sensors is a line just like this one. All right, so all you'll have to do is just cut this wire tie right here, and then just unroll this to the back of the box here to the label. All right, so you see the label, so you just match them up, you know, and then it's that easy. So all this that you see here is all going to be done, and like um, this will be covered better, and but the different colors are right here. This is how you'll be able to identify. And like I'll have the numbers on each one of these valves, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then on the other side, it'll be the numbers that correspond on that end. And this, you get this thing, and it comes with its own stand. And so you get this PVC here, and it'll already be attached. So see right here where this 90-degree bend is here? So none of this is glued. Once you get it, if you wanted to glue it, you can. I just decided that I didn't have to glue it. It's sturdy. And once you get that 6.5 gallons filled up in there, you're talking almost 50 pounds. And I can be pretty clumsy in here. I get to being busy, and on the other side, it's fairly narrow. And I hit these arms all the time, all the time. Never had one break or knock it off or anything. So right here's not glued. Here is glued. And then these 2 points, this is glued, that's glued, but none of this is glued. And that's all done on purpose so that you can rotate this up like this. All right. Just like that. So that now you can unscrew this, unscrew it and then replace it. And then once you replace it, just bring it right back down. Whoop. I need 2 hands. I need 3 hands. So then just bring it right back down, right here, just like that, and then just give it a squeeze. Just give it a squeeze on each end. Just squeeze it in like you're playing the accordion. So and this system, like this isn't it for me. Right now on the website, I'm just doing a 4x4, 6x6, and then I think an 8x8. I don't know if I got a 2x2 in there. I might. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. Um, but in the future, so the max number it'll do right now is just 16. But once I get rolling a little bit here and I'm able to test more, I'm going to put together a 32 pot SIP system. And I think, yeah, I think I could run at least 32 pots. And on the sensor system, I think the max I could run there is around 24 pots right now. And if I expanded it out like I could do, like I can do on the SIFs, because they're essentially the same setup. The manifold, everything's the same. Um, I could probably expand that to be close to 50 pots. But when you get bigger, then that means more ball valves, more sensors. So it's going to drive the price up, but maybe not as bad as you would think. And if you're running an operation where you're running that many pots, maybe you don't want to spend the time or have somebody that's working for you. Maybe you could use their valuable time doing something else in the garden or working in some other capacity. You know, that's what I like about automation. So like I said, this comes as one unit. So this comes off, and it'll come just like you see it here. It'll be in a box. The boxes are 18 by 18 by 30 inches long, and so this pipe you see right here sits. I cut. See the holes there, right? In the PVC. So this thing sits down in there. So it's nice and sturdy. Got a couple of wire ties around it, holds it right nice down, nice and sturdy. And yeah, I'm very happy with the way the system runs. And if like if you needed some, I don't know, let's just say you're running a huge giant pot. So up here for your watering selections, you have 8, 16, 32, 64, and then I'm going to make it a gallon and a half. All right, for the homeowner. Okay, but let's just say you got something special, then I looked into this and I can get a bigger tank here so that you could drop more water at one time. Let's just say if you had something that was like, I don't know, that needed like 50 gallons or 100 gallons. Let's just say you had something giant, well, it could do that. And also on the shoot, I should have brought one of those over here. On my sensor system on the fabric pots. So from the line, the line that comes down, it goes to a T that you can pick up, and I'll have those will be supplied, and then I use a piece of PEX tubing to make my little circle, and then I just drill holes down on one side, about an inch apart, small little holes, not too big, um, and it works fine, and I just leave that just kind of floating above my plant, and it goes around the stalk. And when it's done right, the way I like it is it floods the top like a little swimming pool. It looks like it all pools up on top, and then you can just at some magical moment, it just all just starts to disappear evenly down into the soil, and then I can watch my sensor. The numbers change. So it senses that it's getting water. Um, so yeah, you would get all this on the stand. You get all the ball valves. You get everything to make it work. And you get also, like I said, the pump and the everything to hook up your 55-gallon drum or whatever size drum you decide to use. That's really up to you. All right, so let me open this up here. Look at that. Let's see.
So when you were talking earlier about being in the area near you, man, I thought what dedication that you were willing and belief in the system that you're willing to take the time, skip the shipping. You know what I mean? Come and uh,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I
everybody
sure
in
will.
chat too, by the way, kind of contested to what an awesome guy you are at that point too. And you do have a
Thank you.
big heart. That's one of the big things I like about you, brother. Is
Thank you
yeah,
so
you
much.
do. So, what are we looking at?
Okay. So I don't know how good it is as far as so this is my right hand side of my manifold arm on my plants. So if we're looking at all my plants here, so it would be this row, right here, and it's going to be this pot right there. It's going to get watered right there. That one is the one that's calling for water. Um, and the way that I know that it's ready is because the number here, see that number? I don't know how clear it is, but you should be able to see where it says 839. Well, that's how many minutes it's been since that pot sensor said, "Hey, man, I need water." So, and I saw it at around 200, but I knew that, I was going to be coming here, and I just so wanted to make sure I could do a live watering. So, um, so on the screen, I'm going to just come down here a little bit so that you can see the rest of the screen. Okay, so this will tell you when the pump's on. That's how many ounces I've chosen to use. That's 32 ounces, so you need to fill in that block. This is how many times it's going to water, 3 times. If the full sensor hasn't seen the water yet, um, so if the full sensor hasn't seen the water before it hits 3, and it starts to go into a fourth watering event, all right, before it drops that water, like it'll fill up the tank, but before it won't drop that water to your plant because it'll be interlocked at that point in time. Once it fills up, it'll see that it's number 4, and so it's exceeded what it's allowed to drop. So it's gonna stop the watering sequence, and that water is just gonna sit there. Um, After a certain amount of time, that water will empty itself back into the 6-gallon container, clear the interlock, and then ready itself for the next event or the next pot. If you can see, the pot all the way to my left hasn't changed at all. It's number 3. Okay, so I wanted to look down inside these, inside the pot. And so when I pulled the sensor up out of the water to use my flashlight, just to look in there, so I had it out of the water for 3 minutes. So when I put it back in, it won't count. So I wanted just to show you that it does stay green because you had pulled it out, or I pulled it out, but there's not counting. So that means that there's still water in there. Okay. You'll know if you've been watching the screen, this thing's been moving since from like 8:39 to 8:42 so far. And so I'm going to go back up here, and at the very top of the screen here, that number 2121, I don't know if you can see that up there. Right here. I'm going to switch this to 844. And you have to hit your enter button there. So now you can see that that says 844, and my count is at 842. All right. So I don't know. Um, I don't want to make people dizzy. So I don't know if I should, like if I move the camera too quickly. So see how that went up to 843. Okay, so when it hits 844, this well, down here you'll be able to see this red light will go green, and that means that the 6-gallon pump is starting to pump. All right, and that'll happen as soon as that hits. You'll see when that hits 844, you'll see that red light go green, and then I'll just try and move the camera around slowly so on the actual system that's running this little tent, this little garden that I have over here. Man, that's a long minute. Well, cheers, everybody. I'm so happy you guys spending Friday with us. And I'm really happy to see you back on here, Eagle. I'm, been chomping at the bit for you to get rolling again. There it goes.
I appreciate that, brother. Like I said in the beginning, this is my drink, so I appreciate people that actually put theirs into
Okay,
reality as
so
well.
So see, the green light went on, and so I'm getting a little slow feedback because things are happening quicker than what my computer is picking up. Um, Let me just move over here. But I just wanted to show you the. I don't know if you'll be able to actually hear it, but so there's your 6 gallon container in here. Oh, you know what? There it goes. Okay. So uh it's set so that the timer so that it can empty out a gallon on this system. That's my max, right? So it's filling up in here, getting to be somewhere up in here. It'll stop. You can see the water level right there. So it stops when it hits 32. Now it's draining out. You can hear it running into the system. Oh, I didn't hit the wrong button here. So that was watering number 2. So even from this screen, it's not too bad. Uh, so see how it's done 2 waterings right there, right? Can you guys see that number?
Yes, we can see that number.
All right, so it's gone 2 so far. So see, when it's local right here, you don't have to worry about a delay. It's probably because I don't have my laptop turned or something. But you see how it turned to 3, right?
So
So it's starting to drain, and hopefully you'll see that button go red. Okay, did you see how the number went to 0 and then it turned red? So when it goes to 0, that means it's full, and it goes to red, that means it's done. So it did its 3 waterings. It filled up that reservoir. It's all set, ready to go for the next one. And like I said, you can adjust this time here. I have it, I would normally probably set it for like, at least 1 because you have to, and I would just leave it like that. But because I like to come down here and actually monitor everything, I just like to check everything out. That uh, so that's kind of why you see these numbers real high. See that, like 21, 21. That was the last time it was watered, 28, 28. These were watered. That one was watered on the 27th. That one was watered on the 28th. I just got the numbers set up that way so that I can know myself, and I can kind of know when to expect the next watering. So here's my little garden.
looks good. It looks
Excuse
good.
me.
What are we looking at? What strains?
Okay, so on the left, 6 plants over here. Those are my cuvee from Indica B.
So
Just before he was leaving, I went up to go visit him and me and my wife, and he had cuvee there and sitting out on his deck. And I asked him, I said, "Do you think I could get a cut of that?" And he said, "Sure." So he gave it to me, and this is way back, like around COVID. So I'm just real happy that I still that I hadn't lost it, because I'm not going to say I'm the best gardener, So I've had things happen where, bye bye, and I got to start all over again, So I'm just very thankful that I still have that plant. I like it. It's very strong, it'll put me down. Like I usually will mix it with my Amy Aces, which is right here. Um, and so what I'm getting ready to do on the other side is because I got those fabric pots and those 8 sips, I do have seeds, and I've been cloning. But I think for the my next run over there, I think I might try cracking open seeds that I have, and I'm in week 3 of flower. Here will be Monday, this coming Monday. That'll make the end of week 3. So they're doing really well. Really happy with the way they're progressing. And my cat hadn't been hitting them too hard. I noticed she gets in there on the lower leaves, she likes to munch on them leaves. And, it must do something to them because sometimes I see her eyes and they're like, totally dilated. Like, I don't know, man. I seen her like staring off. So I would just wonder if, just the green leaf has some sort of effect. But uh, she does take them, Uh, anyway, so here's my line that comes from my 55-gallon container. It just ties in, and like I said, you'll have everything that you need. And if you measured out your space and you thought, oh man, 120 feet, that's just not going to cut it. I need like 150. Just let me know, like contact me, and just a little bit of communication, go a long ways to having a successful um, setup. And I'm telling you, this. So once I got the prototype down, which was the software side, and then I just had to decide on the sensors. Like I went with these ball valves. They've always been with me, but the sensors were a different story. Um, and I wanted to show you guys one other thing. I wanted to show you my prototype on the other side, just to show you what the screen would look like if you were to use the sensors. So this would be for the sensor pods. So the very top row that you see up there where it says point 0.3, point 0.3, point 0.3, that's what the sensor is measuring right now. And so you see the number right below it. I've got -1. Okay, so that thing's the lowest is going to drop to 0. So essentially, I've isolated those pots out from being able to call for watering. So I set that number so low. And then the bottom number there where you see like 25, 25, 24, 20, those were my high side. That was when those numbers got hit, that's when the sensor told the controller it was full. And many times it would just go over that, like when the sensor hits it, it's kind of like a delay effect, so you need to consider those kind of things because the sensor is going to get the water, but then there's probably still more water coming down the line, that's actually maybe pooled up on top of your pot that's, going into your pot, So, and like I said, you can turn all these off. So I had turned off pots here, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. I could handle 8 pots on the other side of the sensors if I wanted to, but I like to give those plants room to grow. And so that's why I only have four plants in that 5 by 5 tent. So, and it's again has a pump and it lists. And on the bottom here, on the bottom of the screen, it's the same as on the other one, where you would have to put in what number you want. Like here, I've got it at 8, for how many ounces, and then how many watering events it'll do before it sets the alarm, So essentially it's all the same, like the screens are the same, just a little bit different, and then so I have up here, see, I gotta find my mouse. I lost it somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. All right. So up here, it's got like 3 lines, and so this what we're looking at here is my prototype on the other side. So you can see all the stuff that I was working. I had like an air pump in there, the cold fan. This is when I first started. I even had pH balancing. Um, and some of that stuff I still have. It's just I'm not using it in these systems. I kind of went away from that. And so I have a few things in there, and that was the prototype on the other side. Like I said, when I first started, I got everything. And if you just wanted, let's see, okay, with the PLC, right? You can get different cards to be able to read different things, different information. So if you wanted, well, I don't know. I better really think about that before I say anything. But I'm really happy with these sensors that I got. I got one sensor, and it gives me the temperature, the CO, no, it's just the temperature and humidity. And then I have a separate one that's kind of piggybacked onto that that gives me my CO2. So you can kind of see what my CO2 is down here in my basement. runs between 4 and 500. Um, some of these, X out some of these things here. So this is my oldest system, but I just wanted to show you the sensors, how it's different from the SIPs, but essentially the same ideas, you know. So it should be very easy to operate. Um,
It seems pretty easy to operate, and you seem to be pretty willing to work with anybody interested in
yes, that's so true. Yeah, like I'm available. You know, like if you bought one of these systems, you know, I'm going to put you right at the top of the list and make sure that you get your system set up properly and working. And if that means, you know, I got to spend time on the phone with you, a video phone call or whatever, and pointing certain things out, I'll do that. You know, and even if you just got questions, like I'm in the process right now of making some short videos between like 3 and 5 minute long that actually highlight the different screens because there's about 4 or 5 different screens in there, maybe six, but some of them are just repetition because, like I said, I have two watering manifolds, right? I mean, two arms on the watering manifold. So each one of those arms is represented by a screen. All right, that those pumps and those valves, I should say, and then that side of the sit is uh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got to thinking about too many things at once, and I lost my train of thought. But I'm sure it'll come back to me. But feel confident that all the wiring will be done and checked out before you get it. And it's just a simple assembly. And if you can run if you can run a cell phone, and who can't, these days, well, I'm sure there are people that can, so I can't knock it. But then I can help those people out, right over the phone, But if you can operate a cell phone, you can get this thing up and running. You can run this thing. It's very easy to set in a dry back period, 1 minute if you don't want, you know, practically any tryback period. Or like you saw in my system, we didn't water that until 849 minutes. Like all those numbers are in minutes, you know. So you can do the math on that, divide by 60. It's probably, I don't know how many hours, but you're looking at least 10 hours. That plant didn't get any water for at least 10 or 12 hours. That's a long time. Like I've never done that before to a plant, but I have now. Oh, we'll have to keep an eye on that Amy Aces and see how she turns out because she's on that side. But it's very easy, and I'm certainly willing to help you out. And like I said, anybody in New England, and I'm taking care of shipping too, getting it to you. So I, I kind of wish I was living in the middle of the country because then I could probably reach either end of the extreme at half the cost. But yeah, I looked at it from here to California, and so I can do that. And so if I can go from here to California, I should be able to reach pretty much anybody in the States. And not to say that if you didn't live overseas and you wanted, one of these that I wouldn't work with, I would work with you to make sure that we could get it to you. It's just electronics, so I don't know why that would be a big thing. It's just some basic electronic box. It's not like I'm sending you food or seeds or anything like that. I would imagine it would be okay getting across. But it might be something you might want to look into if you do live outside of the U.S. And then we might have to talk about shipping there too, because I don't know. We just have to look at it. If it's reasonable, I'd probably do that too. But if it gets to be real high, then we might have to split it somehow. Um, but you can feel confident. And like I said, it's to set it and forget it. Once you get that initial setup in, you're good to go, man. You can leave that thing, and as long as it's got power, it's gonna run. And you just need to check in on it every once in a while. This is really good for like people who grow in remote spaces. And somebody that I really thought of a lot while he was doing it was Smiley's Gardens. And he had some barn or somewhere far away from where he normally lives. So it's hard, you know. He had to spend a lot of time going there, taking care of those things and getting home. And, you know, any of you guys that do like that kind of extra work, it's demanding. So if you had something like this, maybe you wouldn't have to make that trip over there so often, you know, and you could even set up some little cameras so you can watch the whole thing, so you can make sure everything's fine. You know, I mean, I wouldn't throw those in, but you know, they're so cheap these days, you know. So I think for somebody in a situation like that, or somebody that's got health issues where bending over, oh, think about it. You're bending over, and I'm no spring chicken anymore. I like to think I am, but I know I'm not. And uh, so being in a certain position, you know, irritates my lower back, and so this has been a benefit for that. And anybody that's disabled, you know, I can imagine, you know, getting around a garden and maybe you can't, you know, you're not as mobile as the rest of us are, and maybe this could bridge that gap for somebody like you know, and make that job easier for you know, rather than you know, I could just imagine, you know, we got people from all walks of life I've seen in chat and that I've heard speak on fucking talking shit with Eagle. Once you've been on one of these shows and done one of these, you know, individual one-on-ones where you get to pass, you know, so you can come on. And I highly recommend it because it's a great way for people to see who you are. And it's easier to form an opinion when you're just seeing text come across the screen. and um, but so you get so much more out of the personality and who somebody really is when you get a chance to hear them. And I would highly encourage everybody to give Eagle a call and, you know, get your spot, man. We want to know who you are so that next time I see your name in chat, I'll be like, even if I never saw you up here and I saw your name in chat, I'd be, yeah, that's my grommy, you know, that's a fellow grower, you know, and a friend of mine. And that's the way I look at it, you know, because all helping each other. And I love watching these shows. Mostly I see them on replay because I'm just never know, you know. Uh, I put in the time and, um, you know, sleep. But we all of us can, you know, suffer with different things, and so sleep. And so I catch my sleep when I can, you know, and then when I get up, and even if it's early in the morning when most people would be sleeping, I'll be up and I'll be working, and I'll be doing the stuff down here that I didn't catch earlier, you know. So once you know, everybody knows their own body, you know, so I know mine. And when my body's ready to get go to bed, I can sleep almost anywhere, in almost any position, at any time. I don't care what's going on around me. If I'm tired enough, and I think that's from being in the Navy, because you just learn to block out noises and you know, shit going up and down and up and down. You know, you're way out there. You know, you're in some really rough seas when you're. We had a sonar dome on the front of our ship. I was on a guided missile cruiser, and so when that thing would go down, that thing would shimmy back and forth all the way down because of the sonar dome on the front. You know, so we could fish around for subs, and that's how you knew you were in some really rough seas. When it would shimmy like that. When it would just go straight down, it's not too bad. But when it was back and forth like that, we were hitting some really heavy seas. But even with all those things going on, you know, being the ingenuitive fellows that all of us are, find ways to entertain ourselves. So on before our first cruise, uh, we planned to have a dart tournament. So we had about ours was one of the bigger departments because we had several radar systems and different types of radars on the ship. So we had about 30 guys. So we played in pairs, you know. So we set up a dart board down there. And it didn't matter, you know, when your name came up on the tournament and your team got, didn't matter what the C's were doing or you'd have it all lined up. You go to lift that thing, the ship would go down. It goes your dart, boom, like above, you know, like it was awesome. Um, yeah, I love those experiences. And anyway, don't want to get too sidetracked, but this is a good system. and it's been reliable for me for since I would say 2018 is when I settled on how I was going to deal with the different aspects of my system that I did not like, that I didn't want people, I didn't want to sell this thing to people because I knew that if I didn't like it, and I know what I'm doing, and for somebody that's maybe, doesn't have the experience I do, and then they run into issues like this, it can be pretty frustrating. I know it is for me in other aspects of my life that I'm not real good at. Um, and it can be frustrating in trying to get something working. It's just not going for us. And one of those things was that Hall effect sensor. I'm telling you, that thing was such a pain in the ass. And if I really wanted to get a really good one, and I could have, I mean, they got them out there. They're, several $100s just for one. And granted, that's all you need is one. But if that fails, and that's a big expense. All the things I've got in here, other than the PLC itself, that's the most expensive part. It's just the the brains. All right. Even the cards off of that for the SIP system, I believe they're all under $100. So it's not that bad. Even if it went past the 2 years and then you had to replace them, it's not a killer, in my opinion. And same with these valves. Like, you can get them from me for somewhere between 20, I would say, and 25, somewhere in there. And I mean, if you can get them cheaper, then I would, as long as they're DC valves and they're 24 volts, two wire, then yeah, knock yourself out. They'll work just like the ones I sold you. And if you can find them cheaper, then more power to you. Tell me that where you get them from, so I can make it cheaper for everybody. You know, um, and it's easy to put together. It runs good, reliable, solid.
So
It also has
where's the website again?
what's that?
What is the website again? How can they get a
Oh,
hold of it?
Automation.is.Freedom.com.
It
I'm
looks
gonna plug in my
reliable.
phone
Obviously,
because
your plants are super healthy, and they have been every time had the opportunity to see your garden. Proof is in
I
the
just want to
pudding,
plug
as
that
they
in.
say.
There was a couple other things I wanted to mention here too. So I covered the fact that it's got two separate flood controls. Whether you're pumping from the 55-gallon drum that's filling up the 6-gallon container. So there's two separate anti-flood, and then also there's two anti-flood for the pump that's pumping water up into um, the gravity-fed funnel, tank that's up there. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then another hard thing was figuring out the right type of sensor for the SIP container itself. Because when I first started looking at different sensors that were out there, I bought some and I installed them in my Earth box, and then I got about halfway through a run and it failed. And then I was like, I can't replace that. Like the plant's already into flower, so they're pretty big and well established in an earth box. And if I'd have tried to replace that, my whole reservoir would have emptied out because it was in the reservoir, you know. So uh, poor design. So I decided after that happened, I was like, those aren't going to work. This is not good enough, So I went through a few trials and errors, and I'd had one that did work for my earth boxes perfect. But then I got, I think it might have been City Picker. I think I got a City Picker, and it's a little bit different shaped, and the reservoir was different. And I was like, oh man, when I went to go put my sensor in there, I was like, oh, this isn't gonna work, So back to the drawing board, and so it's taking a little bit of time, but yeah, this thing's rock solid. It's rock solid. The sensor I built for this thing, I made myself. It's not something you can buy off the shelf, and it's very easy to take care of. It's and it'll last you a long time. And even if you have to replace it, less than $20, less than $20, probably even less than that to replace it. So I'm trying to keep anything that might have to go and be replaced cheap as possible. inexpensive. Um, and if something really hard went down, I'm pretty good at troubleshooting. So even if you had a problem in the box with something, I'm pretty sure we could isolate it and figure out what it is and then get it fixed up, get it back online. And one thing that caught me once, so in the 7 years, I've only had two ball valves fail. So 7 years, and it cost me, let's just say $22. So $44 for two valves in 7 years. That's not too bad, if you divide that into seven. But the whole system. So 7 years, I've had to replace on that side two ball valves on a 12 pot system that I've been running at least since the beginning, since all the different sensors, those ball valves are still the originals. And one thing that got me was I would have to water a plant, and then I kept getting these floods. I kept getting water in there. I'd come down because I always check my garden. Like there's not a day unless I'm gone, like gone, for a weekend or 2 months, or you pick a time. You can be gone as long as you want with this system, and as long as you got the right ratio with your 6 gallon container and your backup water, you can be gone as long as you want without having, your best friend Charlie from down the street come in and do your watering for you, and just hope he gets it right. All right, because the horror stories I've heard can be pretty scary. So yeah, it's up to you how long you want to be gone for, but it's reliable. I'm in my garden every day, so I started to notice I was getting this watering pooling in my 5 by 10 tent. I was like, man, what's going on here? So I set everything up so that no watering could take place. So I used my dryback time. So I put it up there real high. And then I waited for the lines to turn green, several of them, so that they all needed watering. And then I came down and I was listening. And I just put my ear near the manifold. And sure enough, I could hear the manifold, one manifold, I could hear the water running through it. So that ball valve had failed, partially open. So lucky for me, right? Not great. So I keep getting this water. Of course, if it had failed closed, then I just would have seen that the um, the watering attempts would have happened, but then it would have failed and it never would have happened. It would have clued me in to look at that pot. And then I could have lifted the sensor up and used my flashlight to look down there and actually see did any water get in there. And so that's an easy way to check. But so those are so if you find water in your tent, then you need to be listening for a valve that is open that shouldn't be open, and it's probably because it failed. Won't be because it's well, not going to say never because Murphy's Law. And oh yeah, and I won't be getting you this stand. So I just bought this off of Amazon. I'm going to give you 10 feet of wire from the box uh, for all the wires that would go from the manifold to the back of the box. The wires that run out to the sensors, you'll get at 20 feet there. All right, so that way you can spread it out. You notice I had my plants kind of all pushed together, and I know that's not optimum, but I'm using some really old quantum boards that were my original quantum boards that I bought, back probably in like 2018 or 19, and they're starting to flicker. So they're starting to go, and so I pushed all my plants together so that they could all get hopefully enough light. But ideally, once I replace those lights with a bar light, then I'll be able to spread those out a little bit more like I'd like to. I tend to have to push a bunch of fans around there so that I can get good airflow. I like setting up like a little hurricane circle effect, so that and as long as I see that all the plants are kind of doing that little bitty dance, not real rough, just a little bit, just keep them shaking. And I think, I know what's happening. Okay. I'm about to lose my little ear thing. Um, so I'll just turn it off, I guess, because I won't be able to hear you guys. And let's see, just turn this off. Wow, I think it died. Hold on one second. I'm gonna try something else and see if this hooks up. Then I won't have to use the little speaker on my phone.
So is the system
But you'll
expandable?
have to say something, Eagle, and then I'll know whether that speaker is working.
Is the system expandable? Say I started
It
off
should
with a
be
four by
connected now.
four. Can you hear me? Hello?
All right. I guess it won't go with the speaker. Let's see.
Is everybody in chat? Hopefully you guys are
Okay.
doing well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm just going to turn up the volume here as loud as I can go, and I'll just listen to you um, from my little phone speaker. I don't know why my big speaker won't hook up and play like the little earbuds do. Um, but that's essentially the system, and I've tried to put on the website as much more information that I can. You know, it's on there. My phone number. I've got a dedicated phone. That line that's there. You guys will be the only ones calling that line, and or text me. You know, like if you can't call during the hours there, I usually get home around 2:30. So I think I put on there from like 3 to 7. You could call me and I'd talk to you. You know, whatever questions you have. I'll make myself available to you. And then outside of those hours, like if you wanted to text me and just say, "Hey, look, I got some questions, but those times don't work. Could we schedule a time at this time?" I'd do that for you. You know, absolutely. And uh, yeah, so everything on there, even the email address, and there is a YouTube link, but I don't have anything there yet. It's not my Automation is Freedom YouTube channel. That YouTube channel should be it's called Auto Sip. So that's my trademark, Auto dash Sip.
Nice. So let's what I was asking you when we had the sound problem there is say I started off with the four by four system. Is it upgradable or would I have to get another system, if I expanded my garden?
Let's see. So I've struggled with that myself. How to do that, because if you're a DI, you know, if you can do it yourself and it's not complicated, you know, like it's very straightforward. And so the only thing you would have to do is download a new program, which I would send you, you know, the upgraded system. And then I would just buy the right cards and then you could just add them on to your system there. It's possible, you know, I'd have to think that through a little bit. Um, these, so yes, so if you were to go from a 2x2 and you wanted to move up slowly, it would be upgradable. One thing I would maybe have to do, like, because the box is the same size, you know, so the box that's a 4x4 box is going to be the same size as you know, this 6x6 box or even the 8x8 box, you know. I should be able to get it all in. Oh,
Thank you for reason, no, brother.
with the wirings from the back, right? So you just have to be willing to do that stuff. And since the manifold, the watering manifold isn't glued, then you can just, you know, pull one off and add the right number of ball valves. And yeah, I don't see that that would really be a problem. Yeah, because the only difference is just adding on ball valves and upgrading the program and just adding on the right cards and then just running the wires from the back of the box to um, you know, out to the ball valves. And yeah, that's really wouldn't be that complicated, I don't think, for anybody to do. And like I said, I'll be right there with you. So if you need me on the phone, that you know you'll be okay. And as long as you don't do anything live, and what I mean by live is don't do anything while it's plugged in. It can be okay. It's. Oh, and that's another thing. This is a DC. Like um, I haven't experimented with it yet, but I'm almost ready to. I have the solar panel in house now, and I have two uh motorcycle batteries that aren't like a regular battery, but they're not lithium either. These are so I wanted to try these because I heard they were they don't explode like the lithiums can. And there was another drawback that lithiums had that these don't. And I think it's maybe the charge time, like the recharge. They're like a and what do you call them? A salt, some sort of
State
salt
or
base or something like that. What's that?
I said solid state or perhaps a gel battery.
Yeah. Oh, it might. No, it's not one of those. I don't think. I don't think it is solid state. Because I think those are really they get the cost. So in my thinking was I was trying to keep the cost down. So I think these batteries may be fairly reliable and may last a long time. Although I don't have any experience to test it and know that for a fact. And it may be that might even on a system like this because once I started using my amp clamp and I started watching the system and how it operated and like how many amps or milliamps in this case does it draw, and its highest draw, it was drawing just under probably like right around 180 milliamps. And that was only for like 7 seconds because those wall valves only get pushed for the first 7 seconds, then it gets held open for the length of time that it's needed, and then it'll close on its own. And one thing too about the watering, so if you set the watering for 8 ounces, right, and after it waters at 8 ounces, and you're like, man, you're like what I was doing initially was how come this seems all to be taking so long, for it to run through its actual cycle, like one cycle. So it's not just one complete cycle would be okay, the 6 gallon fills up the watering tank. The watering tank sends all that water to your pots, and then after it's done, then the ball valves close, and then that cycle is completed. Okay, but for 8 ounces, that water is going to drain out of your watering tank and get to your plant before that cycle is finished. So you need to be patient, all right? Because that timing cycle is set so that at 1.5 gallons is going to be able to get through there before those ball valves close. Okay. So, but if you're only using 8 ounces, that's okay. So you just wait. What? You're going to wait an extra 20 or 30 seconds, maybe, or a minute, tops. And actually, one of those 30, like to fill up that 5 gallon tote um, that we just did that watering for those three. I bet that took less than like 3 minutes to do that, all three of those, and that thing's filled. And it doesn't matter if they all come live at the same time. If I had all 12 of those that needed watering all at the same time, doesn't matter. Just gets put into the queue. It'll do one at a time till it gets through all of them. All right. And that's how it'll work you know, and you can set them all for the same dryback period. You can set all of them for different dryback periods if you want. If you want to push one type of plant, stress it out a little bit different than the others. And another thing too, like if you if you let's just say like you said you'd mix up this special batch of tea or something and you wanted to water that in up the top, like you could wait until you saw that green light come on saying that, hey, I need water, so that maybe now you can water in from the top real slow and just kind of moisten that top soil level, and the plant will get all of its water nutrients from that, you know, and then maybe go a day or two and then fill up your reservoir, you know. But that's all up to you, and that's one good thing about all this stuff is you can experiment, and if you're a guy like me, that's really what I like doing. I like peddling with things. So I got to be careful, because I can get myself in trouble. So that's why I went with the automation, because that way I'm not meddling with the plants too much. And next thing you know, hey man, I've overwatered, So yes. And I even went with an Herbs Now dryer. Put out a plug for that guy. Good guy. And I got two of them. I initially just got one. And why did I get one? Because when I heard I had my first heart incident around COVID and I got sent to the hospital, I just cut down my plants. I just filled up that that 5 by 10 tent with a bunch of full hanging plants. And I was so excited because it's like my best grow. And I was really excited. Big giant buds up on top from some of the old seeds that I got when I first started growing. And I don't know if those were real, like um, I'd gotten like Skywalker and White Widow, but I'd got them all from that seed company overseas, because at the time it wasn't that easy to get seeds here in the States yet, you're still taking a risk. So I was getting seeds from over there. And anyway, so I had this heart condition. I got zipped over to the hospital. I ended up having to stay there like 3 days before they could get my heart to calm down because it was just running like a little rabbit, like that little energy energizer. Yeah, I was 240 over 148 was where I was at. So yeah, I was getting ready to pop a gasket, I'm sure. And so anyway, during that time, all my I didn't, I didn't have any way to control or watch my garden or, maybe notice that the humidity in there was just maybe a bit too high, and I got mold, by the time I got home and I looked through all them plants and all them huge buds and cut them all, throw them away. The only ones that I could save were like little buds that were near like the bottom of the plant. They were the only ones that were kind of like mold free or were mold free. Everything else, like when you break it open, you could tell just by looking at them. They had that brown leaf, that one going in there, and I could just tell, it's like that. So after that incident, I was like, that's never happening to me again. So I tried the herbs now, and I think it was because you were talking about it, Eagle. And so I decided I'm going to give this thing a try. Best decision I've made. I mean, it's just taken one aspect out, that's like, all right, another problem I don't have to deal with because I know I just cut down my buds, I put them in there, and 4 days later, I'm going to be good to go. And if I check them anyway, just like he recommends, after 2 days or after 3 days, I'm in there bending the little stalk. And if I don't hear that crack, then they stay in a little bit longer. But I've been real happy with it, and I don't find like I'm missing anything. I still get a good smell in my jars when I crack them open, uh, and I feel safe. I feel there's not going to be any mold, and I'm not losing anything. Um, so another hit for, not to say that I won't go hang. If we ended up losing electricity and all we could grow is outside, yeah, I'll hang those babies back up to have that experience. But yeah, so I am developing a little solar, and so it won't be it'll run directly off of there's no inverter needed. So if you can use that, another reason I like my box is that it can run straight DC. So if you had an area where you didn't have any power and you decided, I think for around 250 bucks, you could get this little setup. And that's what I've calculated out. Now I just need to test it, so I need to go put that panel in the sun, probably put it on my front porch. So the wiring and all that's going to be a bit tricky, so but I'll get it working to test it. And it'll just run straight DC. So there's no inverter needed. It's just a charge controller to charge up the battery from the solar panel and then directly off the batteries. And that's why I got two of them because they're 12 volts each. So series them, and then you'll have 24 volts. Or they might be 24 volts, and I got two of them um, because I was expecting the amp draw to be slightly higher. So I was gonna uh, parallel. Um, yes, I was gonna parallel the batteries. So if you parallel them, you keep it 24 volts, which is what that system runs off of, but it'll double your amperage capabilities at the the batteries can put out. But after measuring this thing, while it's just sitting there by itself, it's only drawing about 93 milliamps. So if you took 93 milliamps, which would be 0.093 times 24, you're going to come up with somewhere around 2 watts. All right. That's all it's burning every hour while it's just sitting there. So it's not a huge draw. And then, like I said, I would be monitoring it. And then I noticed when the pump kicked on, I could tell, all right, so now it's kicked up to like 130. But then the pump shuts off and then the valves come on. So it's like, uh, it's not like it can get beaten up all at once, you know? So I really think like the batteries, if I remember, I got to look at them. They might be able to run maybe around 2 amps. It would cover that. Just one of them would cover it. So that would lower the price, you know, so it wouldn't be $250, you know? And, and you know, and then you could put that out somewhere. And like I said, it's a set it and forget it. So you get that thing at home, you program it with all the settings, and then you go stick it out wherever you need it. And then uh, it's going to run and it'll run for you, you know, and then you go check on it every once in a while, you know. Um, if you don't have any power or anything, that this thing, as long as you had that setup with the watering, and you know, I could even think of like a greenhouse, you know, stuck out. The reason I came up with this anyway was I was flipping through my IG, and you know how you always get all kinds of different things in there, and I saw this greenhouse that this guy posted a picture of that was like out in the middle of nowhere. Like it only had like a big, like horse trough, like tank, old wooden tank with a horse trough down in front of it, and then a greenhouse, and no power lines, no nothing, you know. So this system would be great for that, you know. And you wouldn't have to be trucking yourself out there so often, you know, and just feel confident it's going to run. And it's a ball. So I'm telling you, during the worst event, like where I live, they've upgraded the electricity in my neighborhood now. Thank you very much. It's about time that my hard-earned money that I spend for these utility bills is finally going to something productive instead of just service fees and new taxes, you know, where 50% of my bill is service fees and taxes. And so when you see that, it kind of goes up, you know, where, you know, and it, so um so it's nice that it draws very little electricity and it's all DC. And damn, did it to myself again. Yeah. Um
The solar idea, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah. So but the bottom line is you could set one of these things out there and you wouldn't need electricity. It just runs straight off of DC and it'll do its job. And it's a set it and forget it. Oh yeah, I remember now where I was going with that because I was bitching about the electric company bastards. Anyway, shysters. Um, so before they got that fixed, in the wintertime, the wind can kind of blow around here. You know, get these northeasters coming up here. I've kind of been happy. They've kind of slacked off a little bit these last few years, and I haven't had to shovel my driveway or where I work so much. Thank God. Um, but when the wind would blow, I would lose power down here. And this was like at the very beginning when all I had was that prototype. So I had everything running off of that box. My lights were running off of it, my heater, dehumidifier, everything, fans, all the watering was staying. It's just full auto. And uh, so the wind was kicking up. I'm losing power. It's going off and on every 5 to 10 seconds. I'm losing power. And, you know, I'm after about the 20th or 25th time of this happening in like 3 minutes, I'm thinking, hey, I got to go down there and turn off. That's hard on my lights, off and on, my everything. Just think of everything electronic and that you might have hooked up, and you're going to sit there at a switch on the wall and go like this, off and on. You know, like you would never do that to your electronics. You know, like that's like you just don't do that. You know, because that's a way to shorten its life in a big way, like at one time. Um, So, but I let it go. I let it go until that storm passed and we had steady power. And I can't count how many times that thing went off and on. But when I came down here, everything's running. Box is running, nothing's failed. I mean, it has a it's fused. It's fused. So if there was any short or something on the wall, you'd pop the fuse so that you'd save the electronics. Right. This is the way it's designed, in anything, any electronics, right? Um, but so I was safe that way. But off and on, and it's just putting a lot of wear and tear. And all that did was just reinforce what I've been saying all along, which is that I want to bring something that's industrial strength and um, you know, uh, uh, industrial reliability to the homeowner, and so that that you're spending. Look, everybody. It's hard. Everybody earns, what they earn, and it's hard. What we make, and so we all want to spend our money in the ways that we see fit that will help us. So this might be out of range for a lot of people. I'm really sorry about that, but if I get going, if things really started rolling along for me, I'm going to kick back to the community. And so my dream would be to be able to do some giveaways on some of these special ones of a system, and so anyway, we'll see how it all goes. And if that's becomes available and I'm going to be able to do that, well, I'm going to do it, and I'll do that once in a while and throw an entire system out there. Um, so that's about it for the system and what I've been working on over the last 7 years. And I've gone through many trials and tribulations and almost floods, three that I know. And each one of those things taught me something new about um, an Achilles heel that my system had, but I was able to fix those. So it's impossible to happen now, those same effects. And yeah, so feel confident. You won't flood your house or your basement, and the system's going to run a long time. I'm in since 2018 on my prototype, still going, still the original PLC, still the original cards, still all the original equipment. And the only reason I don't sell a full auto system like with everything is because I can't compete price wise. Because in the end, people will probably vote with their pocketbook, you know. But so I I can't go full environmental control and compete against a company like AC Infinity that's well established, that has a good controller. I'm sure it's plenty reliable. I don't have one, but maybe I'll spend $100 and get one day. Or maybe I'll just decide to use Inkbirds and control my heater and or AC or dehumidifier in that fashion. I mean, there's several different ways that you can go at this, but waterings, yeah, there isn't it. I mean, there's very few, and there's very few that are electromechanical like mine. And don't think for a second that just because you go with one of these SIP systems that's just like a reservoir, a big tank, and then it's got these little spider lines that go to a specially made valve that fills up a little reservoir, that you can't have problems with something like that. I can tell you right now that one of those valves could get stuck open, and what would happen is that entire reservoir would empty and there'll be nothing there to stop it. Okay, you won't have that problem with my system. All right, if you lose power, no water's going to move anyway. And if it trips any of the interlocks, I'm not going to get any water on the floor. It's the only way that would happen is if the number of waterings when you're first setting it up, maybe you miscalculated how deep you need to set your full sensor, so that you make sure that you catch it before the water level gets up too high and then comes out of that drain hole before it hits the other inner bucket and gets to the soil. So I've got mine set so that it's down like a quarter of an inch. and maybe a little more, maybe even half an inch, just to be sure that I don't get any water on the floor. And does it really matter if it's 1 gallon getting put in there or 3/4 or half a gallon? Like if the roots are taking it all up and it's all automatic anyway, they're going to get water when they need it, right? So, um, you know, if you want to prevent a flood, I just set it a little bit deeper, and you're not going to have any problems. And they're still going to get watered when they need it because it's all going to be automatic, and you don't have to be there, and you don't have to look down that tube with a flashlight, you know. And just think all the time you're saving. Like if you're really trying to get something going, like a grow facility or something like that, and this is a good way to go. And with SIPs, and like I said, you can set up a 32 SIP system on one, just buying one of these units and investing in it, you know? And if that's what you wanted to do. But right now it's just 16. And then if you were running, say, tables or I don't know, like I could really get into doing some really um, without taking too much time actually. And if you want a flood drain, something like that, I don't, man, that's not gonna be very complicated at all. And especially if you had the reservoir sitting underneath the table, like that guy Vader, you know, he grows that way. You know, I love watching his videos and the way he set those up. He got several videos of him putting the system together. You know, the way he has it. It's not automated, but um, that I know of, it might be on timers, but sensors are way better than timers. You know, timers just unless it's a timer in the PLC, you know. But if you're buying an external timer and then you're running that and hoping that you know you can still run a risk there as well um, with a flood and drain that wasn't automated in this fashion with sensors. And then if you had big beds, well, you could probably use these you know, this sensor. Like you could get a pot like this. You know, these just get put in. You can put them in anywhere on the in the bed. You know, and you got this line, and you know, if you were putting it in bed and you needed um it wouldn't be that hard. You know, extra cabling or whatever you would need. And then you could just run your water line from each individual ball valve to that area of the bed where the sensor sits. Like, you know, like I don't water a bit in a bed because I don't have them, you know, like I'm SIPs or I'm in these little fabric pots of 7 gallons, you know. Um, but I can imagine for somebody that's growing in a bed, in a big fabric, in a big bed, that you know, you got to spread the water around when you're watering, you know, and so it wouldn't be any different than having one of these sensor systems like I'm offering, you know, measure up how far apart you want to put these sensors, and then you could figure out how big a system you might need, you know, and then you just use these sensors and plug them in to the bed, and then you'll have from that individual ball valve go to that area of the bed, and then it would individually water, you know, whatever, you know, however that moisture would get spread out as it's getting watered in, you know. Um, so these things could be used in several different ways and not just in the way that I grow. And you're only limited by your own imagination, you know. And even if you wanted to have a different type of stand, like let's just say this stand doesn't work for you, and you've got an idea on how you might want to make something a little bit different. As long as you sitting it around the same height and the top part of that and the top part of this right here sits on top of this. You know, I just like that because it's really anchored in here. You know, you don't have to worry if you bump it, you know, that you're gonna knock it over. And you see it shake, you know. Yeah, well, that's because there's no water in here, but it would still shake some. But I'm telling you, I've hit this thing on the other side because there's a lot less room over there between my counter where um I work. It's got a bench. You know, the previous owner was a big fisherman, and so he's got a big long bench on one side, and then this spaceman split like a rectangle in half, but not like two even squares. It's like lengthwise, you know. So they're narrow. So when I put my tents in there, it gobbles up a big part of that space. And I'm telling you, I'm very clumsy when it comes to being around stuff. And uh I've bumped that thing many times, and I've not um you know never knocked it up. I've never knocked an arm off. I've never knocked it over. Nothing. You know, did I go, oh no? Oh yeah, yeah, I've done that, but no harm. It's a good solid base, and anything that needed to be replaced, even those float valves, anything that needed to replace, you could do it. If you can handle your cell phone, and if maybe you're only still at the flip phone, you know, you still got one of them old dinosaur, or maybe you're still at a dial-up. You know, I don't see many of those around, but I did take a picture of one when we were on vacation, a payphone. I was like, I'm dialing in to fucking talking shit with Eagle on this payphone. That's what I love that picture. Um, but yeah, it doesn't matter where you're at. You can do this. This is easy. It really is. You just turn the power off, unplug it from the wall. You're not going to hurt a thing. You get in there and turn a screwdriver. That's all it's going to take, you know. And any of these things, there's just all two wires, you know. Just see where it unplugs and see the little connector that you know plug the new one into. It's easy. It's very easy. Yeah. Anyway, anybody can do it. Yeah.
Pretty
It,
awesome. I love the fact that again that if you're willing to work with that, if somebody is, I'm better clarifying that. So like if somebody's willing to like say send you a layout of their garden, are you willing to make sure that everything is enough of everything for that in particular layout?
yes. Um, absolutely. You know, just like I would this stand is only, let's see, it's so it's at its top, it's probably close to 6 foot high at the very top. And then um I should have had all these numbers, but total it's maybe 2 feet, maybe a little more than 2 feet either way, a box shape. So as long as you thought that could fit, um, and even like my tents, you know, I just had them going into the. If you look on the bottom holes of your tents, I had noticed that some of them are set lower than others. Like some of them have a slightly higher, you know, opening from the floor. So I
Mhm.
picked the highest opening ones to come in. And even if it has to go up a little bit, that little hump right there, um, because there's enough water and head pressure coming down, it'll push it through. There'll be enough momentum because you're coming right off the top of that, um, from the ball valve. And then, so it's going to push over that. Because I do notice that in my earth box tent, it's kind of like that. It has, you know, just a slight little up thing, but I don't have any problems filling up the sip that's 10 feet away from my watering manifold. You know, it's enough head space. And yes, if somebody, absolutely, if somebody had any questions, just call me. Like I'm here, you know, like I'm here because I support this product and I believe in it. And I know that it's going to work for you. And I know that it's going to be reliable and that you're not going to have any issues. And even if you do, you just call me and say, hey, Reese, you know, you didn't see this. It's not just possible. It's possible, right? I mean, who knows that I've seen every scenario. I've tried to do everything that I could think of to mess with this system to see what it would do. And I'm confident. I'm confident in it. Yeah. I, you know, they always say it's good to get, and I would even work with you. Like, let's just say you bought this system and 30 days later, you think to yourself, and granted, 30 days isn't a lot of time um, in a grower's sense of a run. But if you just couldn't do it, like, I don't know, maybe shipping or something, or some restock fee or something like that. I don't know, something, because I wouldn't be able to sell that as a brand new system, and some people I might have to discount it, even though I know it would probably run and work just fine, and it would be just like it's brand new. In my conscience, I couldn't say, well, this is brand new. I built this specially for you. I built it and then I shipped it to you. It didn't come from Joe who returned it because, you know, for whatever reason, you know, I'm not going to look down on anybody. It's, um, you're an individual and you make up your mind on what you want to do. And just be sure, so we don't have to go down that road. That'd be great, just be sure that it's something that you really want. I, I just not don't have the hesitation be that you're afraid or that you can't do this. All right. Just because you don't have the experience I do. I'm here. I mean, that lifeline's right here. You can talk to me, the guy who built it. You're not going to talk to, maybe my son might one day, I don't know, who knows, right? But you can talk to me and I'm going to be involved and I'm going to be supporting this thing, and whatever, issues you might have getting this thing together, I'll be here, and I'll support you. And I plan to really fill up that YouTube channel with those videos so that I can kind of explain, but how the thing operates, so that you could feel confident and just look at the videos. I could do this, it's nothing, and I think, yeah, I think I like YouTube for that because it's a visual for me. I'm a real visual kind of person, and not a great book reader unless I make myself, I mean, I read technical manuals and all, I take it all in. Is it my most favorite thing to do? Am I the kind of guy that will, you know, have a glass of wine and kick back with a book and then fall asleep? Probably not. No, that's not me. I would maybe listen to an audio. That's why I love all these podcasts, because almost everything I'm interested in, I can learn something about by listening to podcasts. So I'll do that all day and night, But I'm not a big book reader. I do buy books. I do have several books that I like and I've read from cover to cover, and I've really enjoyed them. So it's not that I can't read, I can. Um, yeah, so you can do this. I don't care where you're at. If you just have the confidence in yourself, I'll get you across the finish line. Guaranteed. Guaranteed I'll get you across the finish line. Yeah. Even if that meant a personal visit for somebody in New England that wants me to drive up there. I'd drive. If we tied it into a weekend, I could bring my wife and maybe stay at a hotel or something, and maybe tied it into a little mini vacay. I'd go far up into Maine or Vermont, New Hampshire. That's probably the longest legs for me, would be to go up that way. But I'd do it. I'd do it because it's that important for me. I mean, um, yeah,
So, like to address the book thing real quick in your terminology, basically too, because I enjoy a good book and I'm more a visual learner too. But in this case, I would say Audible is freedom because it's one of those things when you're tied to the book. There's two different pluses and minuses here. When you're actually reading a book, your mind actually, works a little bit differently. You have to put some imagination into it. In some cases, it doesn't absorb better. But in the other aspect of like automation is freedom, audible is freedom too, because you can be doing two things at once. You can be doing something physically and listen to something in your ear and learning something as well. So audible is freedom too, I think.
yes, I would agree with that, Eagle. I would. You're right. Absolutely. Okay, I'm ducking out here because, oh, maybe I'll do this real quick. And I'll give a shout out to uh, Skunk Ape Glassworks. Woo!
Great people. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Scott and the mayor now too, in Skunk Glass Works and Tao in Smiley. You've mentioned a lot of great people in the community. Um, all of them dream chasers, and that's awesome. You know,
Absolutely. And I really like to support the community. I really do. I like, you know, I mean, I could have gone down here to buy a bong. I could have bought one off of Amazon, but I saw Skunk Ape Glassworks. I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get one off him. Because I like to help people that are. I really believe in entrepreneurship, and I really believe that if we want to get this country back, it's going to take small businesses. It's not going to be the Amazon. It's not going to be the ones that are replacing all these small mom and pop stores. I think we're going in the wrong direction, and we need to go back to small businesses and just in almost everything, and especially in our food. Oh my goodness, how I could just rant about that. But so yes, I'm big into supporting people in the community that I can, and I will. People that have things that I think I could use. Like the Herbs Now. I got two of those, and I bought several books from people that have put books out there, Bingus and Jack Greenstock. So it's good reads, and yeah, and I bought seeds from community members. Different guys here, and so yeah, it's just about supporting people that have products that you think you could use. And so hopefully there's enough people out there that could one of these, and yeah. So I'm out here. I've always had that spirit in me, even as a kid. Like I would take her when we lived in Puerto Rico. I would take uh, those hermit crabs that you'd find on the beach, and I'd take them into school. I'd sell them for like a nickel or a dime. I was like in elementary school, and my mom said, and I was right around that age too. And my dad was a big reader. Like my dad is a big reader, and he had paperbacks like you wouldn't believe everywhere. And so my mom put them all in this big giant box, and she says, "You got to get rid of all these books." She said, "Just take them up to the corner and sell them." So I went up there. I sold every book, man. I got rid of that whole box, yeah, out there. And as I progressed in time, I can remember when I was like in my early 20s. I had looked into uh, uh, being a lobsterman right here in New England. I was living in Rhode Island at the time, and I realized I could get a lobster license pretty cheap. You know, I'm glad I didn't do it because that's a hard life out there on the sea. And yeah, so I didn't go that route. Didn't make that mistake. But I did try and start a resort. I wouldn't even finish. When I first got married, I took my wife out of the country and my 1-year-old son to Honduras for a little over 3 years to try and start a resort. So it's not like it has never been there. It's just I haven't picked the right thing. I thought they were the right thing at the time, and but they weren't. They just didn't pan out the way that they should have. And I believe that's because I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I had an idea of what I thought would work. And had I approached it slightly different, I think in Honduras, I think we could have made it. But you know, uh, but we're not, and I'm here, and circumstances came about that could grow in Massachusetts, and upon the urging of my wife, I looked into building something, and this is it, because you can go away with timers that run, things that'll run on your environment. Even if you've been monitoring like a heater or an air conditioner, you can really set the thermostats on those, and they don't even have to be on anything. They just have to be plugged into the wall, and as long as they got electricity, they'll run themselves. So there's a lot of real inexpensive ways that you can run stuff that doesn't really have to be on a controller in the environment. But I would say where I draw that line is the watering. Like how long can you be away for? What if there's a real big event that you want to go and like you're, like near the end of flower, you know? or something like that. And you just don't have that guy, or that girl or that gal. There's plenty of girl growers too, women growers. And so this system to free you up from the watering part, I think um, I wanted to be the first one out there. So here I am. And so I got the first, what I think is, and where you don't have to, uh, you're not buying a sip from me. You can make your own sip. It'll work on any homemade sip, and it'll work on any like store-bought sip, like Earthbox. All you need is that down to. You need to let me know when you order one of these systems what the length is of the down to that you have in your sip, right? When the earth boxes come, they come with a pre-cut one, whatever the length that is, and then I had to make my own for these homemade sips. So all I need is that length so that I can make sure that I make the probes the right length for you, so everything just works just fine. And yeah, you guys would like it, I'm telling you. Anybody that on either case, whether it's going away, disability, getting old, like not me. I'm not getting old. I'm going the Tao route, eating my cookie, taking my RSO. I'll live to be 500 years old. I'm probably, I'm probably like 20 right now. But yeah, this will be there for you. And it's reliable. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it itself. It's there. And even the pumps, like these little pumps that I'm using, and there's a certain pump, like I got one that's not quite as powerful that runs a 6 gallon pump. And then I have one that's slightly more powerful that runs a 55-gallon pump from the 50, because for two reasons, because it's got to run a longer length to get to where the six, I gave you, it could be as far away as 20 feet. It can be as far away as you want to make it, but I'm going to give you enough room so that you can go at least 20 feet from there. And I'll even show close up pictures of mine set up out there so that you can see it. And I'll post them. I should have do that. Maybe I'll put it up on the website. Um, but I'll have the pictures of that so that you can see how I got it. As long as you got a spigot on the bottom end, and I would stress that you get one that you can hook up like a garden hose, like attachment there, a manual one, so that if anything was to go wrong, you can go turn that off, and then you're not going to have any more. I'm not going to have 55 gallons or maybe possibly bigger. If you've got one of those square 250-gallon totes or whatever, um, so you don't have to worry about that flooding your house. Uh, and then from there, like I said, it goes like on a T, and then from the feeder from one T goes to the input leg of the pump, and it's got like an attachment, little hose, little cone shape that goes in there. And then on the top side, it has the exit, which then you run that hose all the way back here. But before you leave the immediate area of where your 55-gallon drum is, you need to be close enough because I'm going to send you a T, a little T, and on that T, on the middle part, is going to be a small hose that'll get attached in there. A small hose, I think it's like 5/32 or something like it's real tiny. So that'll get plugged in there. And then you run that hose back so that that pours into your 55-gallon drum. Okay. So the rest, most of the water goes towards your 6.5-gallon container, but that little bit comes back into that 55-gallon drum because that was the siphon effect cure that almost flooded my basement. That was one of the effects. That was one of the 3 flood times where I almost flooded this basement. And I just happened to turn around. I was working on that bench and something just said to me, turn around, turn around. I turned around and sure enough, the water was just almost at the very top of going over my 6-gallon container. And I was watching it fill. So when it hit that top sensor, I could see the water flow into the 6.5 gallon tank slow down. So I knew the pump had shut off. So I thought, well, I'm okay. So I just turned around and started messing around on the bench, doing stuff. And something just made me turn around. And sure enough, that thing was almost coming out. So I quickly ran over, shut off the water. That's why you got to have one of those water shut offs to save me. Shut that off. And then, so before I just had it going straight from the pump straight into that 6 gallon container. But so what happened was it was that siphon effect because it went from my pump, it went up to the rafters, ran along the top of my basement, then came down into my 6 gallon container. So you can see how that would happen. And so I just turned around, saw it, and turned that off. And so because of that, I got that T. And so as soon as the pump shuts off, and that water stops flowing through that little line back in there, it draws air up in there. Boop. No more siphon effect. That's it. You're going to be all safe. So, like I said, I went through, 3 separate occasions. And so each one of those has been addressed now where it just can't happen. It's just not going to happen. And I would highly suggest, like when I say 32, 64, no, 8, 16, 32, 64, and then it'll be like 192, whatever a gallon and a half is. You'll have to enter in that exact number in there of the water that you want. So it's not 48. That's not one of your choices. All right. And it'll be listed right there. It says if you put in 48, it's never going to see it. And then you'll just end up tripping an alarm. And then you'll have to figure out why. But so so you just put those numbers in there and sorry. uh, Lost my train of thought again.
The
Yeah,
numbers.
well, okay. Yeah, so I think the point I was trying to make was that you just can't put any random number in there. You need to put in those exact numbers for that water so that the right switch sees it. And then it'll stop pumping like it's supposed to. Otherwise, the catch-all will catch it and it'll set the alarm, and you can clear it manually right there on the spot if you wanted to, or you can just wait. I don't know exactly what the time is, but it won't do anything. It's not going to do anything till it clears that alarm. And then it does happen after a certain amount of time. It's probably like 2 or 3 minutes of inactivity. Then it will empty that back out into your 6 gallon tank. Now I remember what I was going to say about the different levels is for you to get a kitchen utensil container, some sort of container that you can do a test. Because like I said, there's a test page on there where you set the day, hour, and minute. And then when those 3 things get achieved, then it will water to whatever level, just like doing a regular watering to your plants. But in this, but it's not going to go to your plants. It's going to come out this other valve, which normally that tube is hanging back into your 6.5 gallon container. But you just pull it out of there and then fill up whatever kitchen Tupperware container you have so that you can see what 32 is. Because I'm drilling these things at an angle, going up there. And so I'm trying to get a right. So I may say 32, but it might be 34. It might be 35. Maybe it's 30. All right. I just want you to be aware. And the best way to know exactly what it is to do that, get on the screen, open up your laptop or use the little use the little screen here that you're going to get. It works just fine, and talk to your machine and then run through that cycle and watch it. And it'll just let you become more familiar with how it all operates because you'll essentially be doing what the sensors are doing, but you're just meeting different protocol in order to initiate the watering event. And then you can measure it and then you can see what it is. And but some people that may be very important, they want to know exactly how much water that plant is going to have. And maybe you'll use all those totals and say, okay, well, it did its watering cycle, so I know it got X amount of ounces. And you'll write that down somewhere, you know, and if, I don't know if you're a seed grower, maybe that's not important. I'm not a seed grower. I don't know, but I would think that somebody who wants to have the ability to be able to, uh, change a few things up. You can. You can with this. You can't with those other systems. You can't with those gravity-fed little spider systems. You can't. You're not going to be able to have a dry back. They're, in my opinion, their only advantage over my system is that they don't use any electricity. That's the only advantage. But electricity or no electricity, that can still flood. And I think it would be more likely to flood than my system would be. Um, yeah, I think so because mine's all gravity too. So you're not putting any stress anywhere. Not putting any stress on the lines. You know, um, there's submersible pumps. It's just I don't know. Uh, I'm very confident in any kind of sip. So if you have homemade sips and you have a down tube, then you're good to go. The only thing I ask you to do, and that's on the down tube, is that you cut notches in it like you would see on the top of a castle. You know how on the castle it's got those, it look like teeth up on top with, like gaps, um, that you would notch the bottom of your watering tube like that. And you need to do that so that you don't create any false full signals. All right. Because when you trap it in there, before that water can escape, that water's filling up. Okay. So, and again, through experience, that's how I figured out what was going on with that. And once I cut those notches, they don't have to be giants. And and like on some mine, I think I only have like four, like four little, maybe quarter-inch little pegs, equally, at 90-degree intervals, sitting there. So on those, I have no problem. That water comes down there and it just goes right into your reservoir like it should, and fills up nice and smooth. And once I did that, system's been solid, solid. I'm telling you, solid. Yeah. So just something to consider. Uh, and for anybody in New England, if you're out there, you're on the fence, need me to come up there just to help you get over that fence, I'll be there.
Well,
Absolutely. I'll take that drive up there and I'll bring my wife and we'll make a good time of it, me and her. And you guys too. I mean, Rose love. She doesn't party like I do, so you just have to accept that. I accept it, and that she's lightweight, and it doesn't take much for her, and that's cool. And I'm great with that because she doesn't hassle me because I'm not so much. But maybe I'm lighter than most of you guys. Maybe that's possible. But I'm just saying. I'm no, not judging. We're just gonna go have a good time because that's what it's about, right? Like getting together. And I often think that if I could get this thing rolling along, I would like to go to some of these, show things. But wow, when I look at the prices of them at some of these, you know, official events in New England, to get a booth is, oh my goodness, it's an outlay. It's not cheap. So probably won't see me at one of those for a while. I'm just going to try this route and maybe a few other things initially to kind of get my word out there. And this system doesn't work for cannabis. Like we have friends that don't grow cannabis, but she grows tomatoes. She's got cherry tomatoes in sip containers that she fills up outside manually. And so I can see myself like my dream eventually is to live somewhere in the Midwest, um, and um, have two greenhouses. One that would be my tropical greenhouse. So it would have, it would have to be built differently. Its floor would have to be 6 feet below the surface of the soil. You would have to dig that hole out, and then you would put the sides up, from the surface. And I would only need like a 14-foot tall greenhouse, because I'll be going 6 feet down, so I'll be adding some space there. But I do that. I would like to have that one that I could put plants in there that I know could survive the winter, and without just using the earth's temperature, down. So then go down another 12 feet, I mean, not 12, go down like another 6 feet. And actually, I've seen a couple of different designs. So I've seen one that has flexible hoses, corrugated hoses that are like 6 inches big in diameter, bunches of them that roll from, um, go from one end of the greenhouse and then circulate down through a trench about, I don't know, 200 to 300 feet, and then come back in the other side. And that allows the air in there to get stabilized at that temperature. Even in the wintertime, it's going to be like 59 degrees. So you won't be able to, your plants will be able to survive year round. And all you'd need to do is just run a little fan just to draw the air around. And then I've seen other ones that are where the greenhouse kind of sits on top of it, and it's made differently, designed differently, and the tubes are like down in there, and it's same concept with the air. Um, because what I think would be a really good bartering tool, like I would like to live near the Amish, because I would like to really get all my food from farmers. I would like to really go back, and anybody that's living near an Amish community, I envy you, because I would buy all my food from them, or as much as I could, um, that I didn't grow myself. And so some of these people might not be able to grow tropical plants. So I was thinking I'd get like Myers lemons trees, and maybe some lime trees and orange trees, and then some other things like maybe a small mango tree. When we were in Honduras, I think you could keep one cut down. You might even be able to grow some other things that people in that part of the country can't get, and probably would be very expensive. So if like my mom lived in northern Florida, and her orange trees kicked ass. And she'd be sending us orange all the time, and grapefruits, if you like grapefruits. And so I think that would be a great bartering tool. Like maybe you could trade like some oranges or lemons for, I don't know, some butter or some eggs, or maybe some chicken or a beef or something. Who knows? I'm sure you could work something out. So the things that I wouldn't want to have to do, like I could keep chickens. I think I could get into that, and probably some ducks too, because I'd like to do some outdoor gardening, and not like a whole flock of ducks, maybe just a couple, just to clean up the slugs, because chickens won't do the slugs, but ducks will clean them up. And uh, yeah, and I'd like to grow as much of my own fruits and vegetables. I'd like to have some nut trees as well that could stand the winter colds, like, pecans, walnuts, stuff like that, stuff that's good for you. And so I'd like to set up an ecosystem. And I think at this stage of where I'm at, um, I would be improving my health, because I feel like I would be eating a whole lot healthier. And I don't like getting stuff from the I refuse to eat a tomato that's bought from a grocery store. And I don't even have tomatoes put on almost any of food that I order. If I order a hamburger, I won't get a tomato. I don't know. I think the biggest thing I like to say is when and use is a strawberry as an example, because there's so many of them, and almost without fail, even the prettiest ones that look good in the stores, bright red, big and juicy and nicely uniform. Well, when you bite into it, it's just a very faint, subtle taste of strawberry taste in there. So then I equate that to my cannabis plants, right? Like, you're looking at them trichomes, and they're still clear,
And if I took them then, I'm not going to get the high I'm looking for. It's like it's maybe not going to help me the right way. And so I look at food that way too. And the biggest culprit is our food, fruits and vegetables, because in our current system, everything has to get shipped to the store, in order for it to look good. So we buy it and we think it's helping us, but it's not doing shit. If it doesn't have a strong, ask anybody, or go to anybody who grows strawberries and get some of their strawberries. And that's what a strawberry tastes like, not like the stuff you get in the store that comes from who knows where, and who knows what kind of standards they have. And maybe California has great standards for pollution and, pesticides and stuff like that. That's great. I like that. I like that they use that. But if it says, product from Peru, who's doing any of that inspecting, right? There's just too many. Um, I just your health is like your most valuable asset that you can have, and the less time you spend in them hospitals or going to the doctor, more power to you, man. Like I'm right there with you. Do like I'm in favor of having a doctor. No, believe me. And if I needed a doctor, I would like to have the best one in that category take care of me, just like anybody would. So, yes, I believe in them, but I also like to lean towards we can really prevent a lot of things by just eating healthy and keeping active. I think those two things in combination are like a key to extending your life. Remember I said 500 years, so I'm in it for the long term. And so food,
Time,
yeah, I'm big on the food.
100 years, a lot will change in your lifetime.
A lot's going to change in the next 5 to 10. I'm telling you. Yeah, I just, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We're entering into a very, I don't know. We'll just see. Anything. I just say, just be prepared as much as possible. Have a nice network, people around you, good community. That is probably number one. And don't feel like you have to leave. Like home may be your best asset in the end, rather than the further away from major population centers, better off. And you know, just have some spare cans of food laying around, or maybe you can get a couple of them toots and things. Won't hurt, just like insurance. That's all. A little insurance. I hope not. My desire is for it to keep on rolling along like it has for all of my life, you know, where we can what's great about this country is it can be um and it is very satisfying, I think, to if that's your desire to run your own business, to kind of do your own thing. Some not knocking anybody who works for somebody else, and they're satisfied in that aspect of their life, work, their pay, all their needs are met and they're happy. And that's great, man. If you got that kind of job, great. I've just never really found that job. I've had really good jobs, and at my current job, it's probably been one of my best jobs, along with the Navy. The only knock in the Navy was having to be apart from my family for the 6 to 8 months for extended time when you go on one of those cruises. But even after you came back from one of those cruises, you just be in port for like 30 days. And then you're back out for like 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out. You're out for a month, you're back in for a month. Like you're in and out all the time. Shipboard life isn't, the best, but learned a lot, man. I learned a lot as a technician, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that, because as a young man, and I wasn't that young, like most people join right out of high school. I still took some knocking around before I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get to where I wanted to be unless I got some sort of education or training more than what I had, and I knew I was capable, like I just never really put out the effort in school. That's why my grades were what they were, and it wasn't until I got out of the Navy and then I had invested in the fund, I contributed and then the government matched me. And then I was able to take that money once I got out and use it for whatever. I could use it to live on, use it to pay for my education. So by then I'd had a family, and I had young kids. So I was able to use that to go to technical college, a really one that's got a really good reputation in Texas. And so I graduated there with my associate's degree, and then and it was along the same lines, like being a technician. I almost went in a totally different field, like in the healthcare field, but I'm glad I didn't. I think that in the end that I might have still been dissatisfied there, and getting into the working as a technician and being able to solve problems and fix things and getting out there. And I got myself into some big trouble too a couple of times when I was out on ship because I had broken my arm and but they didn't know it. And we were already out to sea and we were headed to Panama and we were going through the locks. And so when we got to Panama, they x-rayed my elbow because the swelling wouldn't go down and I couldn't really move it much. So yeah, they could see it was broken, and I had like a minor little cut right in the radial head. And so they were going to leave me there in Panama. But on that trip, we were going to go south after we got into the Pacific Ocean and go across the equator. And I couldn't miss that trip because when you're an East Coast boat, if you're at any port on the East Coast, it's very rare that you're going to go across the equator. So in the Navy, one of the good things is going through that initiation where you are polywog is what you're called, and then once you go across that, it's like a hazing event. So you're a polywog, and you go through some pretty um, it's all in good fun. It's just the way that you look at it. You got grease put in my hair, and you had to be on your knees and hands and knees the whole time, and got sprayed with, fire hose or seawater, and these guys are walking around with their shillelaghs, and their shillelaghs were cuts of fire hose that were about 2 to 3 feet long that they was used as a paddle. And oh man, son, and they had found out that two of the postal worker guys were hiding in the post office, and they found out that them guys were in there and that they weren't going with the rest of us so they got all of the shellbacks. That's what you're called once you go through the initiation process. And so but usually those guys are undermanned, like especially from the East Coast. Like I said, you rarely get a chance to go over. So maybe there was 20 of those guys on a ship of 400 guys. So like the night before is like that's the polywogs, like they try and find out where we're keeping all the food. Yeah, so they store food that they would normally throw over that people don't eat for like I don't know for how long ahead of time, but I'm telling you, it's long because when I went through this trench that was like that we had to go into, and it was only about 8 to 10 inches deep, but it was deep enough. And I saw floating things in there, and I was the third man to go through. And I could hear it was an officer up front, and the stench was awful. Like you're in like a tunnel, and you can go from one end to the other. And you're not going to go backwards because there's all line of guys behind you. I was just pushing on the ass of the guy in front of me and just told him, go, just move, move. It was so awful. I could hear him throwing up. And that's how bad it was. So we get out at the end, and then this big fat chief with mustard all over his belly. And but anyway, I got put in the stockade too. That was a bitch, man. Wow. Yeah, just like the old days, your head and arms, and they're coming up every time one of them guys comes around, is whacking you in the ass. Man, my ass was so sore after that event. But I became a shellback, got my little card, got my certificate. It's cool. My current wife put all those things under glass as pictures so they wouldn't get ruined. I don't have them displayed anywhere. And They won't until I get to my final resting place. And I don't mean the grave either. Okay, for any young ones out there, 500 years. Um, I'm talking to my kids just in case any of them are tuning in. I told them I'd be on. My older ones. My youngest is at his junior prom tonight, so got a chance to see him and his girlfriend off and take some great pictures and stuff, and has some cool moments this earlier this afternoon. So he's off having a good time, I'm sure. And so it'd only be my older ones that might be watching. Uh,
Hope
so
so.
yeah, yeah,
Well, with that being said, this is probably a good time to wrap up this update. And I'm
fantastic.
so
Yes,
glad to see that you're ready to put things out there. And I'm grateful that you decided to come share here first. You know, super grateful about that. So,
actually, I can't say you're the first. I have to say I was on Caribou Heart TV,
uh, still appreciate it
but
nonetheless.
you look, Eagle, you're the first. You're like the first grow channel I ever found, and I really took to your style and the people that you had on. I'd just be in chat, just listening, gobbling up all that information. I was like a sponge. So you and your show's always had a real special place in my heart. I'm always concerned and not concerned, but I always think about you, and is people in your life that you will think about from time to time, and you're certainly one of them. And when I don't see you post for a while, or I'm always thinking, well, he's out there running, or he's out there, he's getting into that new thing that he's doing, and he'll be back, and we can count on him because he's a weed nerd, and uh, I just feel very thankful, and I'm very thankful to the community. We've got a great community, super guys in chat that I always listen to, and I really take in all the information that they share with everybody when they type in chat, and I do especially like to listen to growers that have been on there a while, even if they're different style from mine, because I can always maybe pick up something, and so I thank all the guys in chat. Once again, I'm not going to name any names because I can't leave anybody out. And sure enough, if I start to try and think, I just never going to get everybody, So you're all a bunch of super dudes and gals, because I know that we got gals. And Eagle, thank you so much for giving me this platform. And I'd like to come back on fucking talking shit when you get that rolling again, because we always have some super topics that we talk about from A to Z. Can be almost anything.
Anytime. And remember, you're always welcome to join in the Weedner World anytime you like. And
Okay.
before you go, you gotta give me an updated soundbite as well.
The episode, it's episode 1. No, are you going from the old where you left off from the very last one, or is this a new um
This would be for this episode 841. I couldn't believe
841?
it, man. I dragged it out forever. I had to start doing the dates in between. And then I started doing the math, and I kind of got some ideas. I'm kind of like super excited to get back to doing this, just because I want to hit that 1,000 mark. You know what I mean? When we set goals, if we fall short, whatever. But I don't. I just want to hit my 1,000, and I've got some ideas on when I hit that tipping point. What may come next. So, and the only way to get to that point is to get back to business. And thank you for helping me get back to business 100%, brother. And with that being said, if you are ready, I am ready for this sound.
Okay, fantastic. I want to thank you, Eagle. This is Automation is Freedom, episode 841. No, stop. Oh, okay. Take two. This is
Dude.
Automation is Freedom, episode 842. I had a great time. Kick ass. I can't wait to do it again on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, even if it's at 2 a.m. I'm gonna make my way there. Cheers, everybody. I had a great time. Thank you for listening. And I'll any constructive criticism, send it my way. I'm not one of those touchy guys. No, all right. Just talk to me, man. I'm just a regular person. All right. Cheers, everybody.
With that being said, one more time, please Instagram, the YouTube for the show, and of course, please YouTube as well.
Fantastic. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, Eagle. Thank you so much, man. You're a weed
Thank you.
nerd forever.
Don't forget to Reese.
Oh, shit. Yes. Are you still
What is
there?
it? The website
Oh, yes.
too
The web.
for the product for
Yes.
the system.
It's Automation.is.Freedom, all one word.com. Automation.is.Freedom.com.
Right now.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Eagle. You're the man.
Have a great night. With that being said, thank you guys for tuning in to this 841 episode. It does feel really good to be back hanging out with you guys. With that being said, you guys have a great night. Don't forget to do something nice for somebody. Max kindness do save lives. With that being said, I am out of here. Cheers.